morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to the Vanguard. For Spike, Method, Manischewitz, Cohen, I am Matt Wright, and together we are traversing the muddied waters of freedom.
Method Manischewitz.
Method Manischewitz.
I like that.
Thanks.
I like that.
You move. You keep moving. I'm trying to center you.
I know. I keep moving, and I'm sorry. Oh, no. Oh. There we go. Folks, thanks again for tuning in for a very special episode of the Muddy Waters of Freedom. DebateMageddon!
DebateMageddon!
Thanks for tuning in, and be sure to share this however you are watching or listening to this, whatever service you are using. Be sure to share it. Be sure, if you have not already, to like it and to like the page or channel or whatever you're watching this from, and to follow it. If liking is not an option, follow it, subscribe to it, whatever the thing is you're supposed to do to demonstrate that you want to continue getting things from it. Do that thing. If you are watching it from YouTube, be sure to hit the bell so that you don't miss out on even a single episode of Muddy Goodness. Give the gift of Muddy Waters today. Kids love it.
Kids love it. Are we still okay? We have audio. Good. All right. Some people said that we don't have audio, so I had to check really. Having trouble over on YouTube. I'm not seeing anybody on Facebook or Twitter saying that. I'm not seeing anybody on Facebook or Twitter saying they're having issues. So if you're having issues on YouTube, try Float. flote.app/muddied waters media, and you will probably get the best there. Now, I would say that for each individual candidate, Biden needs to stay on the offensive. If he has to go onto the defensive at all, he's going to get flustered, and we're going to see some of those prime Biden moments.
Yeah, we're going to see some Bidenisms. I think it's really just going to be... Really, this is all going to come down to which one is able to throw the most personal insults, which was the whole thing we were trying to avoid by having an actual leader on the stage who is able to give actual intelligent responses. That was decided that was not going to happen. That's why Joe Jorgensen is outside of the event instead of in it. And I think at this point we're looking at it's going to really be who can. This is going to be like an argument between two mean girls in high school. Which one can throw the worst and most blistering insults, and which one can weather it the best. It's not going to be a debate that's actually going to serve the American public or really anyone watching it.
Right.
So thanks for tuning in.
And Donald Trump's got to be in his peak form. He's got to be in the third debate against Hillary Clinton kind of peak level with the wrong, that's not true. He's got to be at that level. Keep it to monosyllabic words. Don't try to expand. Just
say wrong.
Wrong over and over again.
That's really probably the best thing you could do is just when Joe Biden says something, he goes, wrong. He'll go, come on, man, that's not wrong.
Come on, man.
What are you, a crack addict? That's what he said to the one guy who asked him a question. He said, you a junkie?
Did you take a test for cocaine, man, before you did this interview? Are you a junkie?
Cocaine before the interview? Wrong.
Wrong. I am definitely looking forward to it. And right now it looks as though the Trump family is coming out and sitting down, as is Jill Biden and I don't know who that other girl is. We have... I have no clue who those people are. When I was doing the notes for today, before I knew that we were doing the debate, I was going to spend like 5 minutes on Joe Biden calling those people, calling them dumb bastards. Stupid bastards.
He said stupid bastards, and then it got worse. He called them a dull bunch and accused them of being slow.
Wow, did he really?
Yeah, no, that got worse.
I've only seen the video up to that.
It only got worse. It did not get better. It got worse, and everyone behind him's like, are we supposed to pretend that's funny? Okay, we pretend that's funny.
You stupid bastards. Clap for that. You
stupid bastard.
He out-jebbed Jeb.
That was a different level of please clap.
Yeah, that was a completely different level of please clap.
That was please clap that was a malignant version of please clap.
Right.
Clap for that, stupid bastards.
Clap for that, you stupid bastards. And then I found out we were doing the debate, so I had to scrap all of our notes, and, well, we're going to be winging it from here on out.
Well, that's okay. But this episode, of course, is brought to you by...
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that part, didn't I?
This episode is brought to you by... Here, I'll let you do it. I like when you do it, because you just seem so resigned to it.
Yeah, thanks. This episode is brought to you by Black Organic Coffee. That is BLVCK Organic Coffee, because why the hell not? Use checkout code MW for free shipping on all of their fine, high-quality products. This episode's also brought to you by the Jorgensen Cohen campaign.
Yay!
God bless the Jorgensen Cohen campaign, the Libertarian Party Waffle House Caucus, and the Libertarian Dad Bod Calendar, featuring some of the least sexy men in the Libertarian Party, including this guy here, Mr. April. Be sure to
get all of those things.
I don't know what happened to that card. And this card, and also, as always, brought to you by personal injury attorney Chris Reynolds, attorney at law.
We're not telling you to get personally injured in Florida. We're just saying that if you get personally injured in Florida, contact personal injury attorney Chris Reynolds, attorney at law.
So somebody over on YouTube is saying that they didn't let her speak at her event in Cleveland. I'm assuming that's Joe.
Nope. So Joe set up her. They had, my understanding, as I understand it, is that the campaign got our permits to be able to do our event in Cleveland, where we would be in front of the center there, where they're having the debate, and have her bus there, and have her sound and AV equipment and all that set up, and have all the supporters out there. And what happened was, when they started setting up, the police came out and said, "You don't have a permit." And they said, "Yep, we do have a permit." And they said, "Well, no, you don't have an equipment permit, I believe it's called, or a sound permit." And so then they set up the van like across the little, it's like a grass area on the other side of it where the road is. And they were the police came there and said, "You can't be there either. There's too many people over here." And so she had to leave.
Wow.
Yeah, she had to leave, and it pushed back her studio thing that she's doing, that she was doing. But yeah, no, she had to leave. It's what we've come to expect from this rigged system that we have.
True.
That even with my understanding, again, we had all the permits that we were supposed to have, but on the fly, they said that there were permits that we were supposed to have that we were never informed of. So now we aren't even able to be in front of the debates. But thankfully, the American people will get to hear two morons try to beat each other in a game of idiocy.
True. Laura and...
But if you're tuned into this, you'll actually hear someone who's running for high office give real answers to the questions being posed.
I'm not running for anything. That eye roll was fantastic. Thank you for that.
Good. I'm glad you liked it.
I did. Laura Ann Hartman said that they moved her to a studio to do, I'm assuming, the same sort of event.
No, she did hers before. She responded to the whole debate thing before. She's not live reacting. She just had a live event before the debate was happening.
Gotcha. Yeah, we've got some people who say that they're listening to the Joko live stream also.
Oh.
Yeah.
That may have changed, because originally it was going to be 6:30 that it started, but then all this stuff happened with the police there at the debate ground, so they may have pushed it back.
I legit thought that there was nothing happening here. I thought that was on pause for that entire time, and I got really worried that I messed up. It's just, they must be arguing over who goes out first.
So it wasn't paused. They're literally...
Yeah, that was just on that screen for that amount of time. Chris Wallace is sitting there like, what's going on?
He's sitting there like us, trying to figure out what the hell is going on.
Right, he has no idea.
Here we go. There's sound there.
City and the Cleveland Clinic. I'm Chris Wallace of Fox News, and I welcome you to the first of the 2020 presidential debates between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. This debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. The commission has designed the format, 6 roughly 15-minute segments with 2-minute answers from each candidate to the first question, then open discussion for the rest of each segment. Both campaigns have agreed to these rules. For the record, I decided the topics and the questions in each topic. I can assure you, none of the questions has been shared with the commission or the 2 candidates. This debate is being conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Cleveland Clinic, which is serving as the health security advisor to the commission for all 4 debates. As a precaution, both campaigns have agreed the candidates will not shake hands at the beginning of tonight's debate. The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, no boos or other interruptions, so we, and more importantly you, can focus on what the candidates have to say. No noise except right now, as we welcome the Republican nominee, President Trump, and the Democratic nominee, Vice President Biden.
There's going to be no noise tonight, except for right now.
What, were there like 20 people in there?
Yeah, there can't be that many. Right. It looked like it was just like the families and then a few close staff members.
A lot of people have been waiting for this night, so let's get going. Our first subject is the Supreme Court. President Trump, you nominated Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend to succeed the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court. You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the Senate's to consider a nominee to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president and Republicans to jam through an appointment and what you call an abuse of power. My first question to both of you tonight, why are you right in the argument you make and your opponent wrong? And where do you think a Justice Barrett would take the court? President Trump, in this first segment, you go first, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chris. I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way, In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame and other places. So I think she's going to be fantastic. We have plenty of time, even if we did it after the election itself. I have a lot of time after the election, as you know. So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that. We have a professor at Notre Dame, highly respected by all, said she's the single greatest student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school. And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her. And very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they'd try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They had Merrick Garland, but the problem is they didn't have the election, so they were stopped. And probably that would happen in reverse also. Definitely would happen.
He doesn't actually know why they weren't
won the election, and we have the right to do it.
Just said they didn't have the election.
President Trump, thank you.
Right.
I think he may have meant the Senate.
Right. I'm certain he meant the Senate, but
doing this and looking forward to this, Mr. President.
Thank you, Joe.
The American people have a right have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is. And that say occurs when they vote for United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States. They're not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle of an election already. The election has already started. Tens of thousands of people have already voted. And so the thing that should happen is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is, because that's the only way the American people get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president.
Now,
this is the exact opposite of what they would be saying if it were the other way around.
This is the exact opposite of what he was saying in 2016 when he was saying the Joe Biden rule isn't something that's in existence. It's not real. What I meant was he shouldn't do it without consulting the people in the Senate first. Now,
and Trump, vice versa, was saying, wait until after the election.
You should wait until after the election. So now you have it where both of them have taken the position of the opposite side because it helps them politically.
Right.
But she's written before she went on the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional. The other thing is on the court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man gets. And that ended when we, in fact, passed the Affordable Care Act. And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as well.
Can anybody name one procedure that costs more for a woman to get than a man?
Delivery of a baby.
Yeah, delivery of a baby and abortion. Are those the only two that it costs more for?
I'm not sure what he meant there.
I don't either.
With pre-existing conditions, as far as a say is concerned, the people already had their say. Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
He's elected to the next election.
During that period of time, we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years. And the 100 million people, Joe, the 100 million people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. The bigger problem that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care that they're very happy with.
That's simply not true.
Well, you're certainly going to socialist. You're going to socialist medicine.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Vice President.
Number one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare and we increase it. We do not wipe any. And one of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
It's not what you've said, and it's not what your party has said.
That is simply
your party
a lie.
doesn't say it. Your party wants to go socialist medicine.
My party is
and
me.
Socialist
right
healthcare.
Now, I am
and
the
they're going to dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now.
Joe Biden is not the Democratic Party.
Is what I, in fact, approved of.
That's a key difference here is that Donald Trump is the Republican Party.
Wipe out pre-existing
Joe Biden is not the Democratic Party.
Not the Democratic Party.
The 200,000 people that have died on his watch, how many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down?
How do we go from the Supreme Court to
Joe, you've had 308,000.
So because Barrett has said that the Obamacare is unconstitutional, they got onto Obamacare, and which of course that's going to bring Joe to COVID because Joe Biden's going to want to hit on COVID as much as he possibly can in this debate.
Of course, yeah.
He's going to.
That's the thing is Joe Biden's got to hit on the fact that America's done worse than any other country, any other developed country on COVID, and Donald Trump's going to say socialist over and over again.
Right. That's basically all that's about to happen here.
That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is all
You don't know it's
begun.
on the ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
Why is it on the ballot? It's not on the ballot.
It's on the ballot in the court.
I don't think so.
In the court. Well,
There's nothing happening there.
Courts don't have
Donald,
ballots.
would
And you
just be
don't
quiet
know
for a
her view on Roe v. Wade. You
I
don't know
don't
her
know.
view.
Well, all right. Let's talk. We got a lot to unpack here, gentlemen. We got a lot of time. So on health care, and then we'll come back to Roe v. Wade.
All right.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn
That's right.
Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they want to give good health care.
If I may ask my question, sir.
good health care.
Over the last 4 years, you have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan
Yes,
to
I have.
replace Obamacare.
No.
Of course I have.
No, he hasn't.
I got rid of the individual mandate.
I'm going to give you an
Excuse
opportunity.
me. I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a
That
big
is not a
chunk of
comprehensive plan.
That is absolutely a big thing. That was the worst
I
part of
didn't ask
Obamacare.
Sir,
Chris,
you're
that was the
debating him,
worst
not
part of
me.
Obamacare.
Let me ask my question.
Well, I'll ask Joe. The individual mandate was the most unpopular aspect of Obamacare. I got rid of it.
I'd like
and
you
we
to,
will protect
Mr.
people
President,
with
I'm the
pre-existing
moderator of this
conditions.
debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer your
Go ahead.
question. You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare, and just this last Thursday, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what...
So for anybody who doesn't know, the executive order that Trump signed is a $6.6 billion bribe to the elderly, where he is giving all of the elderly on Medicare a $200 card for new medication. It's like when Walmart gives away $20 gift cards or something like that. They are getting that, and he is going to...
Right before the election.
Right before the
election. And he's doing this by executive order.
By executive order. So
he's spending money by executive order.
He is. And it is going to... what he is doing is bribing the elderly in this election.
Yep.
Drugs, that what we're doing, prescription drug prices, we're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because they pay just a tiny fraction.
As I say, this is open discussion.
No,
Let
but
me
this
ask
is
you about,
big. This is big stuff,
sir. You'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the vice president, which is he points out that you would like to add a public option to Obamacare, and
Yes.
the argument that he makes and other Republicans make is that that is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
will. I can ask you the question. It will
Not
end.
what your party says, by the way.
It will end private insurance and create a government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare would, Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in
That's not what the public option is.
Number
The
one.
public option is a competing health care program for... Well, I mean, unless his is different for anyone who would want it. That's what the public option has always meant. Why would you need to enroll someone in a public option if there's already Medicaid available?
Right. Which you wouldn't. Because when they're talking about Medicare for all, they're actually talking about Medicaid for all.
Right, right.
Get very lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to
With
make
what?
sure, because
With what?
here's the deal. Here's the deal. The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just
agree.
want to
Hey,
make sure.
Joe, you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish, sir?
He doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be
you know,
surprised.
you pick
You'd be surprised.
the
Go ahead,
wrong
Joe.
guy, the
Go
wrong
on,
night
Joe,
at the
go.
wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Did
Sanders.
he just make a section?
This all insults.
There is no manifesto, number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan.
Folks,
absolutely agreed
folks, do you
to,
have any
and under that
idea
plan,
what
you have
this clown's
socialized,
doing?
They call it
Mr.
Do you have any
President.
do?
socialized medicine.
Mr.
Well, I
President.
tell you what, he is not for any help for people needing health care. Because
Bernie?
because he, in fact, already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession. Number one. Number two,
yeah.
there are 20 million people getting health care through Obamacare now that he wants to take it away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to do. Take it away.
No, I want to give them better health care at a much lower price because
by the way, he doesn't know how. He doesn't know how to do that.
I've already fixed it.
He has never offered a plan.
I've already fixed it to an extent.
He has never done a single thing.
As you might know, but probably don't.
Gentlemen, you realize if you're both speaking at the same time,
and it's too expensive.
Let the president go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better, and I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate. We guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the individual mandate. Listen, this is the way it is. And that destroyed, they shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well or badly? Yeah. If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people, okay? I said, you got to run it so well.
That's what he's
and I just had a meeting with them. They said, the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive.
Okay. He needed someone to tell him that.
He needed somebody to tell him this.
We do want
to tell him that Obamacare is bad.
I understand it, sir, but I have to give you roughly equal time.
Good.
Please let the vice president talk.
Good.
He has no plan for health care.
Of course we do.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right, I have one final question for you,
sure.
Mr. Vice President. If Senate Republicans, we were talking originally about the Supreme Court here, if Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now.
There's no good answer to this.
There is no good answer.
Because he has no good answer, because if he says yes, that'll make the further left or the biggest anti-Trump people in his party happy, but it'll make a lot of centrists unhappy. But if he says no, that'll make the centrists happy, but it'll make the more left or the more anti-Trump people unhappy.
Right.
So there's like no good answer for him there. This is like a perfect wedge issue for Trump.
That is a great wedge issue for Trump because, yeah, no matter what he said there, it was going to be the wrong answer, which is why he didn't.
And if Joe were there, she would be able to say something along the lines of, this isn't about growing or reducing the court. We should keep the court the same number. The problem is that these two clowns and their parties keep putting bad justices in there. That would be how you would be able to deal with that. Unfortunately, there's no good response to that.
Before we come back to anything approaching normal, my question for both of you is, based on what you have said and done so far and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck. 200,000 dead.
Did he just wish himself
over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease. What did he do? He's on tape as acknowledging he knew it. He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people. You don't panic. He panicked. In addition to that, what did he do? He went in and we were insisting that the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan.
Wrong.
I laid out
Sir,
back
it
in
is 2
March
minutes.
exactly what we should be doing.
Wrong.
And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open schools. It costs a lot of money. You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if we would have listened.
Joe Biden just told somebody to get out of the bunker, which I find,
The irony was not lost.
and then he went to sand trap and then a golf course.
And then it went downhill. So what neither one of these people can say is that the CDC is the reason why the pandemic is as bad as it is here. They didn't allow medical professionals to test and treat COVID patients for the first 2 months that the virus was here. That happened under Trump. Anyone who thinks that would have been different under Hillary or under Biden is fooling themselves. It's the CDC. Trump is impressively incompetent in many ways. The CDC would have done the same thing. These are regulations that have been in place for quite some time. It had nothing to do with Trump. It is the quote unquote what people call the deep state or the regulatory state that did this. That is why it's as bad as it is here. This is all hobby horse stuff between the two of them. This is all left-right rope-a-dope narrative. Oh, if I had a plan, it would have fixed it. Unless your plan involved completely deregulating the medical, the healthcare industry and allowing medical professionals to do their job, nothing they're talking about right now would have made a major difference because for the first 2 months that the virus was here, they weren't testing for it, period. That's it.
Yep.
All they've told us is that the only way you can slow the spread of this thing is by constantly testing people early and often. And they didn't test anyone for nearly 2 months. There were like a handful of people that got tested illegally, or else we wouldn't have even known it was here.
Accurate. Somebody, Justin Darby in the comments said, I feel like I'm watching two old guys arguing at a nursing home. It feels like you're watching Abe Simpson argue the pedophile dude from Family Guy. Get your fat ass back here. That guy. It's Hank, you want a lollipop? Get your fat ass back here. That guy. I forget his name.
I know who you're talking about.
Cool.
Yes.
That guy, you know? Yeah.
The economy. This is his economy he's shut down. The reason it's shut down is because, look, you folks at home, how many of you got up this morning and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID? How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse holding a phone up so you could, in fact, say goodbye.
You would have lost far more people. Far more people. You would have been.
And by the way,
late.
his own CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he held up. He said, if we just wear a mask, we can save half those numbers. Just a mask. And by the way, in terms of the whole notion of a vaccine, we're for a vaccine, but I don't trust him at all, nor do you. I know you don't. What we trust is a scientist.
You don't trust
Dr.
Johnson
Fauci.
Johnson, Pfizer?
Okay, by the way,
gentlemen,
Did Biden just go anti-vax?
Questions about the future, because you both have touched on two of the questions I'm going to ask.
Wait. Did Biden just go anti-vax? Did he just say, I don't trust the vaccine?
He said, I don't trust the vaccine. Which this is going to be a big issue for a lot of the people on the left in this debate, or well, not in this race, is they're all going to say, I don't trust this vaccine because they can't say that they trust it. It's Trump's vaccine.
Because Trump is president.
Right. So they are having to deal with the fact that there have to be anti-vax on this while also stating the other ones are okay. Don't worry. Those ones are fine. But these ones, don't do that. Flu shots, go ahead. But don't do the vax.
thing. I've spoken to Pfizer. I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call them left, I don't know what I call them.
The head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Slawi?
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available. Just like
he said
Dr.
it's a
Redfield.
possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also be after
when it's
that.
generally available.
Well, we're going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up. Logistically, they're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be delivering.
This is the same man.
It's all set up.
Is he saying that
Military?
is he saying that the military is going to be giving out this vaccine?
Did Joe Biden just go anti-vax while Donald Trump said the military is going to be giving us vaccines? This is what happens when you have two utter buffoons debating. They have no idea what they're talking
They
about.
have no idea what they're talking about.
They just hate each other.
We have the military ready to go. They're going to be giving out hundreds of thousands of these things. What? Why is the military?
That we're voting for less government with Trump. He wants to use the military to give you vaccines.
You said that
And
again
the other one is
tonight.
saying not to
Your
trust
running mate,
vaccines.
Senator Harris.
Yeah, another
goes
one saying
further,
don't trust vaccines.
Saying the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already show that people are concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it, are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out. He puts pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
But you're saying
Everybody
you can't, or
knows.
Senator
And
Harris is saying
no,
you can't trust the scientists.
No. You can trust the scientists. She didn't say that. You can't trust
She said the public health
Did say
experts,
that.
quote, will be muzzled, will be
Yes.
suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do. But there's millions of scientists. There's thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him. That's not. They're the people. And by
I
the way,
spoke to the
and
scientists
Fauci,
that are in
and
charge.
By the way,
they will have
and
the vaccine very
does-
soon.
Let him finish.
Do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the lies he's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID? He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be back in February, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked or he just looked at the stock market, one of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died, and a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
So-
Mr. President?
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college.
Can you
You went to
imagine?
Delaware State. You
Can
graduated.
you imagine being
Either
someone
the
who
lowest or
thinks that
almost
these are
the
your
lowest in
only
your class?
two
Don't ever use the
options
word smart
for
word.
president?
Don't ever use that word.
Oh,
Well, unfortunately, that is such a large
47 years you've
swath of the voting base.
No wonder nearly half of registered voters don't
I
vote.
was put through. I had to close the greatest.
If I
economy in the
watched
history of our
this
country.
and
now it's being built
thought
again.
these were my only two options for president,
okay.
I would
Okay.
possibly
When it
move.
comes to how the virus has been handled,
If we didn't have you and Joe running, I would not be voting.
how the virus is
There's
handled going
anybody who
forward,
can.
I wouldn't even think of voting for either. If I was told these two were my only options, I would no sooner vote for either one of them or see either of them as a lesser evil. They are competing for who looks like the biggest moron.
Right.
Except they're competing for themselves to look like the biggest moron.
You've got to provide these businesses.
Legitimately, this would be
to
a
have the money to be able
much more. Well, I don't know. It's pretty entertaining, but if it would be a lot more entertaining if you just let them bare knuckle box it out right there on the stage, and whoever wins the fight wins the debate.
And
Schumer,
by the
Brian,
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. He won't even meet with them. The Republicans won't meet with him in the
Okay.
Senate. And he sits in his golf course. And I mean, literally, think about it.
You probably
Or
play
think
more than
about
I
it.
do, Joe.
What about this question of reopenings and the fact?
Well, he wants to shut down this country, and I want to keep it open. And we
You
did
ju-
a great
he
thing
just
by
admitted
shutting
he
it
shut
down.
it down.
Wait a minute,
Let
Joe.
him
Let me
finish,
shut
sir.
you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second. We want to He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't. Even younger people aren't. We've learned a lot. But he wants to shut it down. More people will be hurt by continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons they're shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election on November 3rd.
I want to move on to another
because
subject.
it's a
I want to move on to another subject.
But those states are not doing well that are shut down right now.
Respond to that.
President Trump, you have begun
Massachusetts has a Republican governor.
Increasingly question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
No, I think
the
masks
efficacy
are okay.
of
You have
masks?
to understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test, and you've had social distancing and all of the things that you have to. But I wear masks when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. I will say this.
Vice President Biden, go ahead, sir.
Look, the way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open. We provided money. The Congress,
But I was asking you, sir, about masks.
Well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks in social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also said the opposite. They've also said
no serious person said the opposite.
Well, look
serious.
at Dr. Fauci.
So the CDC actually 2 weeks before they said, "Oh, everybody should wear masks," said, "Yeah, you probably don't need masks. Masks aren't going to help. They're only going to make things worse." And then 2 weeks later, they turned around and they said, "You should wear masks. Masks are going to help you."
Well, so the CDC heads were claiming that the statement or whatever that said that masks weren't as important and testing wasn't as important. Correct me if I'm wrong. They said that came from the White House. That was not an internally sourced CDC document. Maybe I'm wrong, but there was.
I read that from the CDC, and it may have been.
Yeah, no, it was from the CDC, but they're saying it was something that was given to them by HHS. It was from the White House. It was not an actual studied or sourced or vetted internally, like a peer-reviewed study or document from the CDC. But that's the kind of conflicting information that comes out from a politicized executive branch, which either one of these is going to give you that.
Right. And again, I don't know which one of those is accurate because I remember reading masks don't help. And then 2 weeks later is, oh, well, no, actually, we found that masks do help, so you should wear masks everywhere. And then I've seen other doctors go out and say, no, that's ridiculous. You're using these cloth masks that are just going to hold in all the stuff your body is trying to get rid of, and you're just going to be sicker. So I don't know.
No negative effect.
We've had no negative effect, and we've had 35,000, 40,000 people at these rallies.
Just quickly finish up because I want to move on to our next.
Yes, I would. He's been totally irresponsible the way in which he has handled the social distancing and people wearing masks, basically encouraged them not to.
All right.
He's a fool on this.
If you could get the crowds, you would have done the same thing. But you can't. Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the economy?
Yes.
The economy is, I think it's fair to say, recovering faster than expected from the shutdown.
Much faster.
In the second quarter, the unemployment rate fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit to growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference does that mean to the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
What's a K?
So we built the greatest economy in history. We closed it down because of the China plague. When the plague came in, we closed it down, which was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't think we should close it down, and he was wrong. And again, 2 million people would be dead now instead of still 204,000 people is too much. One person is too much. Should have never happened from China. But what happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening, and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down he will shut it down again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people, between drugs and alcohol and depression, when you start shutting it down, you take a look at what's happening in some of your Democrat-run states where they have these tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came out last week. You saw that. Oh, we're going to open up on November 9th. Why November 9th? Because it's after the election. They think they're hurting us by keeping them closed. They're hurting people. People know what to do. They can social distance. They can wash their hands. They can wear masks. They can do whatever they want. But they got to open these states up. When you look at North Carolina, and these governors are under siege, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others, you got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost, it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce, look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. And he'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right. Your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped recovery. What's the difference?
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well. Billionaires have made another 300. What?
K Street. That's what he means by K-shape. No one gets that reference, Joe. Anyway, go ahead.
You folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America. How well are you doing? This guy paid a total of $750 in taxes.
$750. Everybody drink.
Sir, it's just
the wrong state.
Yeah, I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States to leave office having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in the way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America. And he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety. Schools. Why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone. He ought to get on the job and take care of the needs of the American people so we can open safely.
All right. Your time is up, sir. We are going to get to...
He's making a strategic error. He keeps saying that the president needs to do something. Instead, he should be saying the president will never do this. You need to,
yeah, right.
Pick me because I'll do this.
Right.
Not sure why he's doing that.
It's because he's not reading it. It is. And he's saying...
No, you're right.
Right. And he's saying, during this time period, the millionaires and the billionaires, which is the K Street reference, which...
That was obscure. Listen, we are two policy nerds, and it took us a minute to get that. That was not good.
Right.
Guys, just keep in mind that the city of Cleveland and the Commission on Presidential Debates kicked out someone who right now would be breaking down to the American people, should be breaking down to the American people, how both of these people and their parties have created this mess. And instead, we're being subjected to this utter nonsense by two people who have no plan for anything, who mostly just personally insult each other, who are largely saying the same thing in terms of policy, but framing it in such a way to make it look like they're polar opposites, and who really are just working to continue kicking the can down the road of ever-growing government, ever-growing infringements on your lives, ever-growing debt spending and taxation and everything else. This is all you're ever going to get. And if you ask them about it, they just throw insults at each other because they're both fine with doing that, because that means neither one of them has to ever answer the real questions about how they created these problems together.
And to say, for Joe Biden to say he's only helping out millionaires and billionaires, you're looking at 2 millionaires, not a billionaire. Trump's not a billionaire. We all saw his taxes. But yeah, you've got 2 millionaires on stage arguing over if the virus helped them or not.
Yeah.
And that is basically what their main argument is here. And Joe Biden will bring up the fact that he released his taxes and he paid $300,000 in taxes compared to Trump's $750, as though that's an argument that I'm going to care about.
So unless they're stupid, they go through the laws, and that's what it is. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We build the building and we get tax credits, like the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. You get a massive, which, by the way, was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now, the man got fired right after that happened. But
Vice President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code that made him, put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher makes on the money a school teacher makes is because of him he says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts. And I'm going to eliminate those tax cuts and make sure that we invest in the people who, in fact, need the help. People out there need help.
But why didn't you do it over the last 25 years?
Because you weren't president. Because you weren't president screwing things up.
You were a senator.
You're the worst president America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe. I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe. We've done things that you never even thought of doing, including fixing the broken military that you gave me, including taking care of your vets.
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy.
The Obama administration spent more money on defense spending than any president before him until Donald Trump came into office. The broken military. This is the kind of stuff like Obama just stopped all military spending. It ramped up to highest levels that it had ever seen.
And $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession.
Well, just take a look at what the analysis done by Wall Street firms. Points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying American. That we're going to make this federal government spend $600 billion a year on everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that every penny of that has to be made by a company.
But respectfully, sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
By the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 91 companies.
Didn't he say he was going to eliminate a certain number of the taxes and then talk about raising them?
Yeah, I think he meant tax cuts. But here's the thing. He was asked about the fact that his plan is going to run about $4 trillion in debt. And he said, yeah, but it's going to run up $1 trillion in economic growth. That's a 3-to-1 loss.
Who would continue your free market approach, lower taxes, more deregulation?
Not lower taxes for American people.
But let me.
Excuse me.
But in Obama's, you talk about the economy booming. It turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had the slowest recovery economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. If you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my tax my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty
Half
of companies that are already here, they'll leave for
hardly any
other
companies
places. They will
poured in
leave,
here.
and you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen.
Look,
Mr.
we
Vice President.
inherited the worst recession short of a depression in American history. I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created the jobs you're talking about. We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't
he
booming.
Blew it. He blew it.
It wasn't booming. It was the weakest recovery
Well, sir, is it
since
fair to, wait, is it fair to say he blew it when, in
When
fact,
COVID
there was record low unemployment before COVID?
Yeah, but because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing went in the hole.
Excuse
number
me,
one.
Chris. Wait.
Number two.
Chris.
Number three.
They said it would take. No, you were number two.
No.
Chris. They said it would
This
take
guy.
a miracle
You just
to
called
bring
him
back
number two.
manufacturing. I brought
This is
back
the
700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing.
We
Part
did
of
not
my
agree.
standard fare.
I'm the guy that
He
brought
totally
back
gave
the
up on
automobile
manufacturing.
industry.
Let him make.
We brought back, I was asked to bring back Chrysler and General Motors. We brought them back right here in the state of Ohio and Michigan. He blew it. They're gone. He blew it. And in fact, they're going.
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies came in from Germany, from Japan, went to Michigan, went to Ohio.
They're not having
And they didn't come in with you.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit
China
with
ate
Mexico.
your lunch, down
All right, gentlemen,
18%. China ate your lunch, Joe. And no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars. Takes out billions of dollars to manage. He makes millions of dollars. And also,
Simply
while we're
not
at it,
true.
why is it, just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million.
That's
What
not
did he
true.
do to deserve it?
That
What
is
did he do with Burisma
none
to
of that-
deserve
Wait, wait,
$183,000?
None
You've
of
asked
that
your
is
question,
true.
let him answer.
None of that is true.
Oh, really? He didn't
Totally,
get
But no,
$3.5
hey,
million?
Mr. President,
It's
Mr.
totally-
President, please.
totally
ask a question.
discredited. Totally discredited. And by the way,
Well, wait, he didn't get
No, no.
$3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice
He got
Mr.
$3.5 million.
President,
that is not true.
Oh, really?
Mr.
Oh.
President,
But,
So, yes, he did get $3.5 million from the widow of the former mayor of Moscow. He did. That happened. I'm not sure what Joe is going to do to try to spin that any other way.
I'm interested
Look,
in
With no
my
job?
son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
and
Mr.
the only
President,
guy that
let
did
him
something-
answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly discredited.
who?
And
The media?
By everybody. Well, by the media, by our
because they refuse to
allies, by
talk
the
about it
World
because they're
Bank,
embarrassed.
by everyone as discredited. Matter of fact, even
Mr.
the people
President,
who
please stop.
testified under oath.
So let me
under
ask you
oath,
this, Joe.
under
No,
oath.
go ahead, Mr. I'm listening to
Even
you.
the people under.
He got $3.5 million from Moscow.
He testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I
really?
did it
I'd like to
honorably.
know who they are.
Well, I'll give you the list
I'll
of the
fire
people who
them.
testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a good job.
Some people don't
well,
do a good
here's
job. With you,
Go
they
ahead.
say-
here's the
Wait
deal.
a minute. You get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me, this.
Hey,
this
let me just
person.
say, Joe.
No. I'm Mr. President. I'm
$3.5
Mr.
million,
President.
Joe.
That is simply.
Why did
not
he
true.
deserve $3.5 million
It
from
did-
Moscow?
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that. I mean, his family we could talk about all night. His family's
My
already.
family,
No, let him go.
my
Let-
family
already
lost
wrote-
a fortune by coming down and helping
Go
us
ahead.
with
Go ahead,
government.
sir.
And that's such a.
they're right
That's
here.
it, Mr.
That's
President.
such
Every
a great.
single one of them lost
This
a
is not
fortune
about
President.
my
coming and
family or
helping
his
us with
family. It's
government.
about your family,
They
the
didn't
American
collect
people.
$3.5 million
He
for
doesn't.
nothing.
That's not true. It doesn't want to talk about what you need. You, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking about.
you
here.
should
All right,
Not
that's the end of the
Shouldn't have
segment.
taken the money.
We're moving on.
He didn't take them.
Well,
Vice
it's a very-
President,
but Chris,
no,
can I be honest? It's a very important
Try to be
question.
honest.
No,
He
I-
stood up.
No,
He stood up.
I feel on a very special level with Chris Wallace right now, and normally I
I
don't.
cannot imagine.
I cannot imagine having to be him.
I would only agree to moderate this debate if I had a mute button, and I could just be like, nope, I've asked you to let the other person talk. I've asked you to let the other person talk. You're not okay. You're both muted now. Now I'm talking, and you can go talk to yourself. I would never agree to moderate a debate like this unless I had a mute button.
Right.
With these type of people, with these two types, I would not, because it's just going to be, especially with Trump, but just in general, they're going to talk over each other. They have never had to have social graces in their entire life, and it's showing.
Plenty.
No, less than you have. Let's please continue on. The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years? Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution. And we have never walked away from trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But we've never accomplished it. But we've never walked away from it like he has done. It is true. The reason I got in the race is when those people, close your eyes, remember what those people look like coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging, just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed. And they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president's ever said anything like that.
It is who's
now,
sir.
Second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a Bible. And then what happened after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is a savior of African Americans. This man.
Now, real quick, remember, Joe Biden voted against busing. He was for segregation. He wrote the 1994 crime bill, which put more black men in jail than potentially any bill in history. For him to come out and say that Trump is sowing racist hatred is the pot calling the kettle.
Oh, it absolutely is. Right. Now, the pot is calling the kettle black. The kettle is, in fact, also black.
Right.
But the pot is calling this is two men who have a terrible history of propping up and entrenching and growing systemic racism, who are going to have an argument together about which one's worse on it. Again, this would be a perfect opportunity for Joe to detail how both of them are part and parcel of exactly why African Americans, and really everyone, but especially the most marginalized among us, are facing the disparate outcomes that they're facing.
Your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement, because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look, Seattle, they heard we were.
Did you looked like you were going to say something.
Just that, I mean, here you have him talking about using federal troops on protesters.
10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are run by Democrats and in many cases radical left. And they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question of race. Vice President Biden, after the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case decided not to charge any of the police with homicide, you said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could be equally applied in America. Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yes, there is. There's systemic injustice in this country, in education and work and in law enforcement and the way in which it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples. And when they occur, when they find them, they have to be sorted out. They have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable. And what I'm going to do as President of the United States is call together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, to the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to George Floyd. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to Breonna Taylor. Most don't like it. But we have to have a system where people are held accountable. And by the way, violence in response is never appropriate. Never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence is never appropriate.
All right.
What is peaceful protest? When they run through the middle of the town and burn down your stores and kill people all over the place,
that
and you
is
say
not
peaceful protest?
President Trump,
No, it's
I'm not
not,
asking.
but you say it is.
President Trump, I'd like to continue with the issue of race. I promise we're going to.
Now, what Joe Biden...
That was nuts. He just said peaceful protesting is okay, violence isn't. And Trump said, you said that violence is peaceful protesting.
No, what Biden was saying was that they need to be held accountable, and he's right. But
He is right.
He is right. But if you were to ask Biden whether or not they should get rid of qualified immunity, he would probably say no.
Or end civil asset forfeiture or mandatory minimum sentencing or no-knock rate. You'll notice what he said. There was an opportunity for him to speak to a base of people that want police accountability. He said, I'm going to have the police sit down with civil rights groups. He didn't say a single policy, a single thing that would actually change.
Nope.
He said I'm going to have them talk to each other. That's not going to stop bad officers from abusing authority that they have and not being held accountable for it.
That is the equivalent of either one of these two guys going to a sexual harassment seminar and sitting through it because they have to, but you know that they're going to do it again.
Yeah, and now meanwhile you have Donald Trump, who wants to pretend that there is no problem with policing and that everything's fine and that anyone who's protesting is actually a violent looter.
Right.
And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
Nobody's doing that. He's the racist.
You just don't know.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about this than he does.
Let him finish.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important to people know. They don't want to. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together. We can take this on and we can defeat racism in America.
President Trump, sir.
During the Obama-Biden administration, there was tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at Ferguson. You go to many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now.
Oh, my
but
Lord.
the reason
This
is that
ridiculous.
the Democrats that run these
Absolutely
cities
ridiculous.
don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
and you
crime,
still haven't mentioned.
violent
Are you in
crime.
favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow it.
Are you in
and a little
favor
bit
of law and order? Go
yes,
ahead,
I'm
say
in
it.
favor.
You asked a question, let him finish.
Law and order.
Loses
Law and order.
Let him answer.
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. And the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 17%, 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down much more in ours.
All right, we're now.
is president of the
Mr. President,
United
you're going
States
to.
of America.
We were
Mr. President,
breaking every record in the
Mr.
book.
President, you're going to be very happy because we're now going to talk about law and order.
Places we had trouble were Democratic-run cities.
That's
and
exactly my question.
Democratic-
There has been a dramatic increase in homicides in America this summer, particularly, and you often blame that on Democratic mayors and Democratic governors, but in fact, there have been equivalent spikes in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth.
Chris Wallace just threw in a subliminal message for you.
I think it's, you can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot
I just real quick, I just want to say, so that entire conversation was supposed to be at race. All Donald Trump talked about was law and order and law enforcement. There was something that Joe Biden said that was actually true. Trump, knowingly or not, does speak in dog whistles, and that was a perfect example of it. He was basically saying, I don't give a crap about that. I want to talk about how much I support the police. That was a huge dog whistle to his base of support. That also doesn't give a crap about those things, does not care if people of color are facing much worse treatment at the hands of law enforcement, is actually probably fine with it, or at the very least apathetic to it, and just wants to make sure that they feel perfectly safe against the scary images they see on TV. Now, of course, the fact that his continuation of the war on guns has left business owners and private property owners unable to defend themselves against rioters and looters, while simultaneously leaving protesters, peaceful protesters, unable to defend themselves against brutal police officers, which would increase law and order and safety if that ended. He can't say that because he'd have to admit that he's just as bad as the guy to his left there. But the fact that he wouldn't even address the idea of racism or anything else, when that's what the actual subject of that part of the debate was about, demonstrates that, I mean, he's signaling to he's virtue signaling to his supporters. I don't care about that. We don't care about that kind of thing. That's a them problem, not an us problem. And, we're just going to talk about how much we love the police.
Also, I saw somebody in the comments say, let's take a shot every time somebody says law and order. Please don't do that. We want you to continue watching the show, and
do not die.
We don't want any of you to die from alcohol poisoning tonight.
Do not die.
Please do not do that.
Do not die.
And the reason Spike and I don't come up with a drinking game is because both of us are sober. So
both of us are sober, and also we don't want to die.
And we don't want to die.
I'm going to do a drinking game when either of these two acknowledges their shared complicity in the creation of the problems that we are facing. I will take a drink.
Support. Look, he has no law enforcement
That's not
support.
true.
Almost
that's
nothing.
Look.
Oh, really? Who do you have? Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you. Go ahead. Think. We have time.
We don't have time to do anything.
Think about it. Name one law enforcement group that came out and supported
gentlemen,
you.
I think I'm going to take back the moderator's role, and I want to get to another subject, which is the issue of protests in many cities that have turned violent. In Portland, Oregon, especially, we had more than 100 straight days of protests, which I think you would agree. You talk about peaceful protests. Many of those turned into riots. Mr. Vice President, you say that people who commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is as the Democratic nominee, and earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now, have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you stop the days and months of violence in Portland?
I don't hold public office now. I am a former vice president. I've made it clear in my public statements that the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted, and anyone who commits it.
But you've never called for the people, the leader. Excuse me, sir. You had never called for the leaders in Portland and in Oregon to bring in the National Guard and knock off 100.
The moderator presenting the National Guard as just like a common sense standard, as though that's the best way to deal with this, instead of allowing people to protect themselves. Keep that in mind while you're watching this, that the person who's supposed to be an uninterested third party, unbiased moderator has presented as sort of just this natural case of point, natural common sense solution, bringing in federal troops instead of allowing you, the American people, to defend yourself.
Said that. And so here's the point. The point is that's what he keeps trying to rile everything up. He doesn't want to calm things down. Instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly, and every single solitary time.
And to end this, button up this segment, I'm going to give you a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly criticized.
I have to answer his statement.
No, you have repeatedly. You've been talking back and forth.
Statement.
I'm asking you.
I would love to end it.
Sir.
I would love to end it.
If you want to switch seats.
We could very quickly.
We could do that, but
send in the National Guard, it would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay.
But they don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm
prepared to specifically
do it?
Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
You want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and
who would you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud Boys. Stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem. This is a left-wing.
FBI director
This is a left-wing problem.
White supremacists. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got to be
not
kidding.
militia. That's what his FBI. FBI director said.
Well, then you know what?
No, we're done, sir. We're moving on to the next. We're moving.
When a bat hits you over the head, that's not an idea.
So this is a perfect opportunity where Joe Jorgensen would have united the American people and shown that both of these fools have absolutely no intention of stopping this violence, that they want to have boogeymen to blame on this. Clearly, they want to make it where the standard for how to deal with this is the National Guard, instead of ending the root problems that led to these protests in the first place, and also allowing the American people to protect themselves, protesters to protect themselves against abuse. And also for the American people, the people that own businesses, the people that own homes and own properties, to protect themselves and their properties and their loved ones against opportunists and rioters and looters. What a perfect opportunity to say both of these fools created this problem and their parties created this problem. Here is the answer, maximizing human liberty to be able to fix these problems at their core and for us to have safer streets. That is something that is a sorely needed interjection into this national conversation that cannot happen because the Commission on Presidential Debates and the federal government and the major corporate media have colluded to make sure that only these two idiots are the people you hear from on a national level.
There was unity going to happen. People were calling me for the first time in years. They were calling and they were saying, it's time maybe, and then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including Space Force and all of the other things. A fixing of the VA, which was a mess.
Did he say the rebuilding of Space Force?
The rebuilding of Space Force.
Yeah, he was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military.
There is no way you have a 91% approval
and I'll tell you
rating.
something. Some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the
Unless
first
I
term,
have
I'll
exclusively talked to every single one of that 9% that said that they didn't like it, that there's no way you have a 91% approval rating. Across the board, I have yet to meet a single member of the military or veteran who, when I tell them that I want to dismantle the VA and give them the money that they want, that they need to be able to pay for their own health care, that they don't jump at it and say that this system completely sucks. There's no way that it is. If anything, it might probably be a 91% disapproval.
In my entire time of speaking with people about the VA and socialized healthcare and all that, I have spoken with one military person who says that the VA is good. One.
Yeah. I've not met one on this trail. I've met a couple that say that the surge centers and centers of excellence, that those do some good specialty work. But when I tell them how much it costs compared to in the private sector, and how much better things would be if they could just get the care they need, and ask them if they would have preferred to be able to get care from day one instead of having to wait months or even years to get care after proving their percentage of disability, they jump at it and say, I would absolutely prefer that. There's no way that they have a 91% approval rate at all. There's no way. No.
Being weaker. The fact is that I've gone head to head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppy. He still refuses to even say anything to Putin about the bounty on the heads of American soldiers.
Your son got $3.5 million.
I was going to say, but Biden bringing up Putin is a terrible thing when his son did get $3.5 million.
He's claiming that's not true. So when that comes up, he just goes, that's a lie. It's been discredited. So that's his strategy with that.
And why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
He never keeps his word. Can you add back
No, I'm not asking. That was a rhetorical question.
Can you add back 30 seconds?
Yeah, yes,
okay.
You may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less
because of
you're
the CARES Act
than you were before.
So I mean,
in terms of being
you're
more
complaining
violent.
that the billionaires have gotten richer. You supported the CARES Act. You support a second iteration of the CARES Act where big businesses will get even more money that the American taxpayer will have to pay off. Put them back on.
The CARES Act or the HEROES Act?
The CARES Act was the one that they passed. The HEROES Act was the second one that they haven't done yet.
Right, and the HEROES Act Part 2 is what they're trying to pass in the House right now.
Okay, all right.
That's why I got confused when you said the second iteration.
There. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking
like
about
hell.
Hunter? Are you talking about Hunter?
I'm talking about my son, Beau Biden. You're talking about.
I don't know Beau. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He wasn't dishonorably.
Cocaine use, and he didn't have a job until you became vice president. And once you became vice president, he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
that is simply
and various
not
other places.
True.
He made a fortune.
My son,
and he didn't have a job.
My son, like a lot of people we know at home, had a drug problem. He's overtaken it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it, and I'm proud of him.
But why was he given tens of millions?
All right, but he wasn't given tens of millions. That is totally discredited.
We've already been
totally discredited.
We've already been through this. I think the American people would rather hear about more substantial subjects. Well, you know, as the moderator, sir, I'm going to make a judgment call here.
Gets $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow.
Let's talk about that. True. Gentlemen, that report is totally discredited. Mitt Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money, that report. It was written for political reasons.
You know, I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay. The forest fires in the West are raging now. They have burned millions of acres.
Nobody ever has been that excited to talk about climate change. Ever.
In the history of the world, no one has ever wanted to talk about that.
So am I. I want to. Anything except for Hunter.
Climate Accord. You have rolled back a number of Obama environmental records. What do you believe about the science of climate change? And what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want beautiful, clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally. but I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't put out of commission. If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint. And people are actually very happy about what's going on because our businesses are doing well. As far as the fires are concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else. The forest floors are loaded up with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder, and leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management.
What do you
You've got to have cuts.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, sir?
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. You know, we're planting 1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very exciting for a lot of people.
that human pollution, greenhouse gas emissions contributes to the global warming of this planet?
I think a lot of things do, but I think to an extent, yes. But I also think we have to do better management of our forests. Every year, I get the call, California's burning. California's burning. If that was cleaned, if you had forest management, good forest management, you wouldn't be getting those calls. You know, in Europe, they have forest cities. They're called forest cities. They maintain their forests. They manage their forests. I was with the head of a major country. It's a forest city. He said, sir, we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem. I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, you know, at some point, you can't every year have hundreds of thousands of acres of land just burned to the ground. That's burning down because of a lack of management.
But, sir, if you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars and trucks?
Well, not really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car, and you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer. It would be much cheaper by $3,500.
In the case of California, they've simply ignored.
No, but you would take a lot of cars off the market because people would be able to afford a car. Now, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me.
It's a tiny difference, but people would be able to buy 4 times as many cars if it wasn't there. It's a tiny difference. He wasn't wrong about the forest management thing, though.
No.
That was a broken clock moment, the forest management thing. Sort of like Biden with the we need police accountability, and then he went off the rails.
Right. Before he refused to say get rid of qualified immunity.
Get rid of qualified immunity.
And no-knock raids and civil asset forfeiture.
Generate electricity by 2035 and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by 2050. The president says a lot of these things would tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong, number one. Number two, if in fact, during our administration, the Recovery Act, I was in charge, able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that we are able to take the federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles. Making sure that we can do that, we're going to put 500,000 charging stations and all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future. We're going to build an economy that, in fact, is going to provide...
create even less pollution?
Nuclear.
Is if you shut that part of the federal government down.
Also true.
Because no cars are actually preferable to electric cars. And the federal government is the single largest polluter in the country to begin with. Uh-oh.
That was weird. Why did you think that why would you think I left?
Did it go back to the...
in terms of energy production by 2035.
So, by the way,
not
just
only
real quick, so just something on this really quick is that this is another perfect example of where Joe would completely change this conversation. You know what hasn't been brought up yet, which just also happens to be the only cheap and plentiful and stable and safe and clean and carbon neutral form of energy that is able to be started today without hoping for innovations in the future? Nuclear. Neither side has said that. One side saying fossil fuels, the other side is saying renewables, which are not there yet.
Yeah,
and the only way that you don't have to subsidize nuclear. All you have to do is get rid of the regulations that make it prohibitively expensive to build new nuclear plants in this country. And energy would cost a fraction of what it costs now. And we would be at about close to carbon neutral. We'd probably be pretty close to net zero within a matter of a generation. And it wouldn't cost a single subsidy or a single mandate or a single tax or anything else. And it would create a whole bunch of jobs, and it would make energy much more cheap and plentiful, which would allow for greater innovations and technology increases, including that of renewable energies.
Yep. Or methane without it being a problem. Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is a guy who says that, well, the fact is, it's all true. And here's the deal.
He's talking about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they want to rip down buildings and rebuild the building.
No,
it's the dumbest, most ridiculous. Where airplanes are out of business, where two-car systems are out, where they want to take out the cows too. You know, that's not true either, right? This is a $100 trillion.
Look,
that's more money than our country could make in 100 years if we're
not
going
the case.
All right, let me wait a minute, sir. I actually have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy-efficient homes. So the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good-paying jobs.
Let him finish, sir.
He doesn't know how to do that.
$100 billion.
The fact is, it's going to create millions of good-paying jobs, and these tax incentives to people for people to weatherize, which he wants to get rid of. It's going to make the economy much safer. Look how much we're paying now to deal with the hurricanes. By the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them. They may.
I never said that.
That's what he did say.
You made it up.
And here's the deal.
You make up.
We are going to be in a position where we can create hard, good jobs by making sure the environment is clean and we all are in better shape. We spend billions of dollars now, on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble. Look what's happened just in the Midwest with these storms that come through and wipe out entire sections and counties in Iowa. That didn't happen before. They're because of global warming. We make up 15% of the world's problem. We, in fact, but the rest of the world, we've got to get them to come along. That's why we have to get back into the Paris Accord.
All right, gentlemen.
Wait a minute, Chris. So why didn't he do it for 47 years? You were vice president. Why didn't you get the world? China sends up real dirt into the air. Russia does. India does. They all do. We're supposed to be good. And by the way, he made a couple of statements. The Green New Deal is $100 trillion.
That is not my plan.
That's
the Green
New
you want to
rebuild every
is
building.
Not my plan.
I want to rebuild every.
If he knew anything about, if he knew anything
he made a statement about the military. He said I said something about the military.
What Trump should do right now is say, "Do you disavow the Green New Deal?"
He's not going to do that.
He said, "I'm stupid."
Whatever. When they've been doing stuff like that, when they're like, do you say law and order? He's like, law and order. Do you disavow the white supremacists? Yeah, sure. Like they've kind of been not falling for those traps for the most part. The only trap I saw that Biden fell for was with the, what was it? When they asked him, it was early on, so I don't remember now. They asked, the wedge issue about,
right. Yeah. About the wedge issue on expanding the Supreme Court.
Yeah, expanding the Supreme Court. That was the only one that he wouldn't just flat out say, do the politician thing and say no, and then come back later and do it if you wanted to.
Right.
That I put forward.
Okay.
The Biden plan, which is different than what he calls the radical Green New Deal.
All right, gentlemen, final segment. Election integrity. As we meet tonight, millions of Americans are receiving mail-in ballots or going to vote early. How confident should we be that this will be a fair election? And what are you prepared to do over the next 5+ weeks, because it'll not only be to Election Day, but also counting some ballots, mail-in ballots after Election Day? What are you prepared to do to reassure the American people that the next president will be the legitimate winner of this election? In this final segment, Mr. Vice President, you go first.
Prepared to let people vote. They should go to iwillvote.com. Decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to vote. His own Homeland Security Director, and as well as the FBI Director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated and cheating. They said that. The fact is that there are going to be millions of people because of COVID that are going to be voting by mail-in ballots, like he does, by the way. He sits behind the Resolute desk and sends his ballot to Florida, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that those people who want to vote in person are able to vote, because enough poll watchers are there to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting, because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is the best way for you, because he cannot stop you from being able to determine the outcome of this election. And in terms of whether or not, when the votes are counted, and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter, because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over. He's going to go. He can't stay in power. It won't happen. It won't happen. So vote. Just make sure you understand you have it in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years. Is it going to change, or you get 4 more years of these lies?
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So when I listened to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition, because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won, and even before I won, from the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady. They were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country. And we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General Flynn. You better take a look at that, because we caught you in a sense. And President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it, too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other thing, it's nice on November 3rd, you're watching and you see who won the election. And I think we're going to do well, because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months, because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud, and it's a shame. And can you imagine where they say you have to have your ballot in by November 10th? November 10th. That means that's 7 days after the election, in theory, should have been announced.
Okay.
We have major states with that.
Sir,
all run by Democrats.
2 minutes is 2 minutes.
All run by Democrats. It's
President Trump,
it's a rigged election.
You're going to be able to continue. You have been charging for months that mail-in balloting is going to be a disaster. You say it's rigged, that it's going to lead to fraud. But in 2018, in the last midterm election, 31 million people voted mail-in voting. That was a quarter, more than a quarter of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of mail-in ballots have gone out, what are you going to do about it? And are you counting on the Supreme Court, including a Justice Barrett, to settle any dispute?
Yeah, I think I'm counting on them to look at the ballots, definitely. I hope we don't need them in terms of the election itself. But for the ballots, I think so, because what's happening is incredible. I read today, where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They take them. We don't like them. We don't like them.
But what
they
are you
throw
going to
them
do
out
about it?
left
There
and
are
right.
millions of ballots going out right now.
You should go and vote.
In-person ballots as well being invalidated. Like, that's not uncommon for a small percentage of ballots to be invalidated.
Right. If for any of our viewers who remember the 2000 election here in Florida, you had the issue where I think they used, I wasn't here at the time, but I think they used like punch cards.
The hanging chads,
And they had hanging chads, and they had to decide, and they had like a couple other different terms for things, like was it dimpled, was it not dimpled? They had all of these different terms, and what would validate a vote and what wouldn't validate a vote. So them invalidating mail-in ballots, 1%, that's actually nothing.
I was going to say that probably is higher at the actual voting booths than in person. So when you're mailing in your ballot, it actually gets sent directly to that Department of Elections or that Secretary of State, as opposed to when you do it in person, it's handled by ballot workers. So there's actually a decent chance that more people are touching it in between your vote getting to who actually counts it, depending on their system.
Depending on the system. I mean, and then you always have the issue of, do you trust the computer systems, which I've never seem to have an issue, so I don't really care. But nobody is ever going to trust the voting system if it doesn't turn out to be the way that they want it to be.
Right.
If Joe Biden loses, he's going to claim that there was voter fraud and that Trump made it so people couldn't vote. And if Trump loses, he's going to say there was massive voter fraud and people threw away the ballots. And no matter what happens, this is going to become the most contested election ever. It will make anybody who remembers 2000 forget 2000.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
The correct eye. Who they voted for, testify, say who they voted for, say it's you. That is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me, Chris, when you have 80 million ballots,
gentlemen, I have a final
Senate
question.
and swamping the system, you know it can't be done. You know it can't, and already there's been
so
fraud.
now
mail service delivers
wait a minute, gentlemen. In the final question in 8 states, we can keep talking. In 8 states, election workers are prohibited currently by law, 8 states, from even beginning to process ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and flatten them until Election Day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting, that we are not going to know on election night who the winner is, that it could be days, it could be weeks,
could be months,
until we find out who the new president is. So first for you, sir, finally for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil unrest? And will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you go first.
I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They're called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair election, I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell you what,
does that
from
mean,
a common sense,
does that mean you're going to tell your people to take to the street?
It means you have a fraudulent election. You're sending out 80 million ballots. They're not equipped to. These people aren't equipped to handle it. Number one. Number two, they cheat. They cheat. Hey, they found ballots in a waste paper basket 3 days ago, and they all had the name military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Vice President
Biden. You think that's good?
Were those the ones that had Trump and Cohen on them?
your supporters to stay calm while the vote is counted? And will you pledge not to declare victory until the election is independently certified?
Yes, and here's the deal. We count the ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until Election Day. And if there's thousands of ballots, it's going to take time to do it. And by the way, our military, they've been voting by ballots since the end of the Civil War, in effect. And that's what's going to happen. Why was it not? Why is it for them somehow not fraudulent? It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all that there is fraud related to mail-in ballots, that somehow it's a fraudulent process.
It's already been established. Take a look at Carolyn Maloney's race.
I asked you had an opportunity to respond.
Look at Carolyn Maloney.
Go ahead.
They have no idea what happened.
Vice President Biden, go ahead.
He has no idea what he's talking about. Here's the deal. The fact is, I will accept it, and he will too. You know why? Because once the winner is declared, after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted, that'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of it. And if it's me, in fact, fine. If it's not me, I'll support the outcome. And I'll be a president not just for the Democrats. I'll be a president for Democrats and Republicans. And this guy,
I want to see an honest ballot count.
Gentlemen, you say that's the end of it? This is the end of this debate?
Honest ballot count.
We're going to leave it there. To be continued as in more debates as we go on. President Trump, Vice President Biden, it's been an interesting hour and a half. I want to thank you both for participating in the first of 3 debates that you have agreed to engage in. We want to thank Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic for hosting this event. The next debate, sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates, will be 1 week from tomorrow, October 7th, at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. The 2 vice presidential nominees, Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris, will debate at 9 p.m. Eastern that night. We hope you watch. Until then, thank you and good night.
Wow, they didn't get closing statements.
Yeah, right. I was kind of waiting for the closing statements to come in.
I was waiting to see if they would if Trump would interrupt Biden's closing statement.
I was assuming that was going to be a thing that was going to happen.
Well, folks, if you weren't horrified at the thought of anyone other than Joe Jorgensen getting elected before that, now how do you feel? That is some scary stuff.
That is some scary stuff. And the next one is the VP debate, right?
Yeah, that is the next one is the VP debate. And after seeing how Joe got pushed off to the sidelines, I think probably the best way to deal with it is for us to continue to build our own thing, continue campaigning around this nonsense. We'll have responses. We can live stream our responses and all of that. But they're making it very clear that it's a waste of time to try to, go to them and beg and scrape at the table for scraps. I think it can be impactful for us to protest what they're doing. But the reality is we have to make our own thing. We need to be debating the other candidates. We need to be making it clear to anyone who recognizes that these 2 schmucks aren't going to fix anything, that there's a better way forward. We have to talk to the 40+% of Americans who do not vote, as well as the nearly 10% of Americans in the last election, or the 5% of Americans in the last election who voted third party, and the many more Americans who held their nose and voted for one of the 2 parties and who recognize this time around that that's not going to work for them. If we talk to them, we're talking to a supermajority of voters. Or close to a supermajority of voters. We're talking to well over 50% of voters at that point. And I think that we should be talking with them. I think that we should take the message away from the people who watched that. If there are people here who watched that and thought that there was a clear choice of one of them being the person who should be the next leader of the country instead of someone like Joe Jorgensen, then I think that we are better served to reach the people who need to know that there is another option, that there are other options out here, and that one of them is a brilliant self-made entrepreneur who is ready to lead from day one by giving you your power back, by fixing the problems these idiots created, and by putting the power and the money and the wealth back in your hands where it always belonged.
Yep. For some reason, after I closed out them, my computer dropped to 4.41 frames per second. So if you're seeing a lag, I'm sorry. I don't know what is happening, but I also can't really fix it. No drop frames, but when you're only doing 5 a second, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, that's interesting. But our audio still sounds good.
Yeah, from everything I can hear. Yeah. So, yeah. I have no idea what happened there. Like CPU usage is down. No clue. Anyway, so I don't even know where you are now.
I am in Manchester, New Hampshire, and tomorrow I will be doing a bunch of interviews, but it's actually a rare day that I'll get to spend with family while I'm up in New England, and then I will be hitting the ground running again for at least another month, pretty much through Election Day. After that, I will be in on the 1st, which is Thursday, I will be in Worcester, in Worcester, Massachusetts. On Friday, I will be flying into Raleigh, North Carolina. I will be there Friday and Saturday. On Sunday, I will be in Binghamton, New York. On Monday, I will be in Buffalo, New York. On Monday, I will be Monday I'll be in Buffalo, New York. Tuesday, I'll be in Rhode Island, Providence, Rhode Island. Wednesday, I will be in Dover, Delaware. I'll be restarting my bus tour going to Dover, Delaware, Virginia Beach, Virginia, Charlotte, North Carolina, Atlanta, Birmingham, Alabama, Savannah, Jacksonville, Florida, Orlando, Florida, Miami, Florida. On the 16th, we're not 100% sure what I'm doing yet, but on the 17th, I will be in New Orleans, Louisiana, and then from there, we're still hammering out hammering out the details after that. But yeah, we have quite a bit of stuff going on, and we will be taking the message directly to the people.
That reminds me. Well, Daniel, thank you for $5 on YouTube. Appreciate it. Ryan Shaw with the Libertarian Party of Savannah. He is the volunteer coordinator for your visit on October 12th. He is looking for volunteers. If anybody is interested in helping out for Spike's visit in Savannah on October 12th, please email Ryan Shaw at LPSAV, Louisiana Party Savannah, LPSAV at lpgeorgia.com. You can reach him there, and he will be able to get you set up to be able to volunteer for Spike's visit.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're looking forward to having some really great events. Each of these events has been really well attended, had lots of really strong support. We are growing in our support across the country and taking a message of unvarnished human liberty directly to the people. We're not waiting for the media to tell the story. We're not waiting for the corporate crony pop culture machine to get involved in this. We're going directly to the people with our message.
Daniel M. is wondering if you celebrated Yom Kippur. His girlfriend is also a Cohen, and she is curious.
I observed it. But I did not fast because with the schedule that I have right now, I would pass out if I fasted.
Yeah, Sarah was sick that day, so I made her eat.
Yeah. I would not, under normal conditions, I could have fasted. I was not in a position to be able to fast. I am out campaigning in the sun for several hours a day in a full suit and walking around and talking very emphatically like this for quite a bit of time, and standing for 10 hours at a time and things like that. So unfortunately, I was not able to fast, but I definitely did observe the new year.
Adam Freeman just sent us $2 on YouTube for something. I'm not sure what that is.
Nice. Well, thank you. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Adam. if anybody wants to know, your Orlando trip is October 14th.
October 14th, yes.
October 14th. If anybody wants to see a list of your events, they can find them at where?
If you go to joe20.com/events, all of our events are on there. Also, the address is kind of long, but if you Google, if you go to my page, my page, Spike Cohen, on Facebook, and go to events, all my events are listed there. Also, there is an Eventbrite for my VP. For my VP, just for my events coming up. But it's like eventbrite.com/VP -Spike-Cohen- something. So it's easiest to go to my Facebook page and go to the events section, and all of that is on there. Or if you're not on Facebook, you can Google Eventbrite Spike Cohen, and that will come up and have all my events on there as well. But yeah, we're going to be going through. I will have visited well over 40 states by the time this is all said and done, and we're taking our message directly to the people, and we invite you to join us. We invite you to join us at our events. We invite you to join us in sharing the message of this campaign and of the Libertarian Party and of the Libertarian movement and human liberty to your friends and loved ones and neighbors, talking to them in person, talking to them and engaging with them and others on social media, sharing our content, writing letters to your editor of your local papers, calling into local news stations, calling into PBS and C-SPAN and all of these other things, commenting on social media who you support. All of these things at the grassroots level are what we can do to share our message of human liberty, to share our message of taking the power back from the Republicrats and their cronies and putting it back in the hands of the American people where it belonged. That is how we move forward in this campaign. That is how we continue to gain support. That is how we move forward. That is how we win elections up and down the ballot.
Yep. And yeah, you have anything else?
I'm sorry?
Do you have anything else?
No, that's pretty much all I want to say. That was horrifying.
Yeah, that was horrifying. That was awful.
That was absolutely and utterly horrifying. That is exactly what we could have expected. And imagine try to imagine briefly what it would have been like if Joe Jorgensen had been on there. What you're imagining right now is why it didn't happen. Because they know that if the American people had had the opportunity to see a real viable option, someone who had actual sense, someone who would cut through all the Republican, Democrat, rope-a-dope narrative nonsense, good cop, bad cop garbage, and simply presented the truth to the American people that these two people and their parties created this mess and that we're never going to get out of it until we take the power out of their hands and put it back in our hands, the American people's hands, everyday people's hands, where it always belonged. Everything would change.
Yep. Thank you, Eric Granada. Eric Granada sent us $20 on YouTube.
Wow. Well, thank you, guys.
Thank you. So thank you all for tuning in to DebateMageddon.
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 Well, actually, so it's like a soft E. DebateMageddon.
I thought it had the M in it.
No, it's not. Yeah, no, it's not. Degate. Oh, you're right. Okay, I'm sorry. Right. DebateMageddon. DebateMageddon.
DebateMageddon.
DebateMageddon.
Fauci. DebateMageddon.
This is me. DebateMageddon.
Right.
Thank you for tuning in to DebateMageddon, and folks, again, please vote Libertarian. If we're never going to get out of what we just saw until we vote something else. We're never going to get out of that. That was horrifying.
That was terrifying. And if anybody wants to, I will be in Orlando October 14th for the people that were asking in the comments. So you will be able to blow sick clouds with me there if you are going to be in Orlando. And that was one of the questions. So
one of the questions was if someone could blow sick clouds with you.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay.
So I will be in Orlando October 14th, and yeah. So usually you do this part, but I'm just going to go. So,
Yeah. Well, no, folks, Matt, if someone were to try to find us on the internet thing here, how would that even happen? Is that even possible? Tell us more, Matt.
It is possible. In fact, all you would have to do is go to anchor.fm/muddied waters, and you can hear all of our episodes there for all of you old school people who really enjoy hearing the sweet, sultry sounds of our buttery good voices. And you can also, I don't know, you can also leave us messages there that we will play live on the air. That we will play live on the air, and you can donate money to us, which apparently you can do on YouTube now too.
Yeah,
that's neat.
That's neat.
That's a neat new thing. You can also find this and every other episode of Muddied Waters Media at muddiedwatersmedia.com.
Well, thank you so much for that, and folks, thanks again for tuning in to this incredibly special episode of the Muddy Waters of Freedom. And by incredibly special, I mean I am so sorry that you had to witness that. And folks, stay tuned. We are working on how I will be able to resume episodes of My Fellow Americans sooner than later. So stay tuned for that. We hopefully will have some good news for you on that front. And again, thanks again for tuning in. We love you so much. We will see you very soon. Be sure to tune in next week, possibly Tuesday. We don't know yet, but I will let you know as soon as we do. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode of the Muddy Waters of Freedom, and possibly another episode of My Fellow Americans. And where we're going,
we don't need roads.